Welcome to the first of several Obsessive videos about the Fred Astaire Ginger Rogers series. And here we're going to be discussing the first one, Flying Down to Rio. This first Fred and Ginger pairing almost never pairs them at all. Fred and Ginger play co-workers in a band that, well, flies down to Rio when their Florida jobs dry up. If it weren't for their terrific chemistry, we wouldn't even consider them a couple in this film. Honestly, if it weren't for the terrific chemistry, we wouldn't even consider this film. It's a fluffy romantic comedy that only survives on risque jokes.
What have these South Americans got below the equator that we haven't?
And cheesecake. Lots and lots of Busby Berkeley-style cheesecake. Fun fact, the movie's executive producer Marion Cooper also produced another little movie that year, where the hero decides to save the day by sending in airplanes. Unsurprisingly, Cooper himself was an ex-combat pilot. The remarkable thing about this film is that it's barely about Fred and Ginger at all. Out of the 10 Astaire Rogers movies, 3 films, that's almost a third of their entire output, actually aren't about Fred and Ginger. The two play comic relief to somebody else's romance, which passes as the main plot. Now, at the beginning of their careers, this is understandable. I mean, Fred was one half of a brother-sister Broadway duo. His sister had just married into British royalty and had left Broadway. He was struggling in his first and last ever lead. Up to this point, Fred's only Hollywood experience was a brief cameo in a Clark Gable film, playing himself. Ginger Rogers was still this girl who was singing in Pig Latin.
Here when hey the honey may, easy ice skates the Ronnie say.
While wearing a big coin over her crotch. What is kind of amazing is that this settles into a pattern for these 3 films. In Flying Down to Rio, Roberta and Follow the Fleet, the main story is about this complete idiot who seduces a woman who's much better than he deserves, and he doesn't get it. Then eventually he does, and you're supposed to think it's a happy ending that the two of them get together. Meanwhile, there's this background story where Fred and Ginger are old lovers who reunite for the first time in many years, and their love story is highlighted by this very flirty dance number. And that dance number shows us that they are deeply, desperately in love despite all their squabbling. But more than that, it shows us that Fred and Ginger are friends first and foremost, unlike the A-story couple who are really just, well, they're just down to bang. The A story, about Fred and Ginger's Playboy bandleader seducing a hot Brazilian he meets one night in Florida, is pretty thin. She's thinly drawn, he's unlikable. But about halfway through the film, Fred and Ginger get their chance to shine. There's a song and dance number called the Karaoke. Frankly, it saves this entire movie. It is huge. It's a little naughty.
What's this business about the foreheads?
Mental telepathy.
I can tell what they're thinking about from here.
Dozens of dancers gyrate on this massive floating wedding cake that has pianists as its base, and then they're surrounded by this ocean of local people. And in the middle of that, Fred and Ginger jump in and they just take over the entire scene. It's their only dance number together in the entire film. Later big dance numbers like the Piccolino or the Continental, these numbers obviously owe their debt to this as the first major Fred and Ginger dance number. And frankly, it's a showstopper. The whole movie rotates around this one scene, and it's phenomenal. So, Flying Down to Rio is a mediocre film, but it birthed a beloved legacy, and I'm grateful for that, despite the fact that it's generally kind of dumb. But hey, Fred and Ginger? Magic.